I'd like to welcome you to HartmanBaldwin's latest installment in our webinar series, where tonight we're going to be focusing on construction itself. If you had the opportunity maybe to see some of our other webinars, you've had a chance to learn a little bit more about how we design and how we help you get to construction. And now we're actually going to talk about the construction piece of itself. Before I get too started, we're having a panel discussion tonight. So we want to introduce some of the other panelists that are on board with us. First, myself, I'm Bill Judson. I'm a design build consultant with HartmanBaldwin. I've been with the company for 15 years. I'm a licensed architect and a registered LEED accredited professional. We also have Reg Abersack with us, one of our senior project managers. Hello, Reg.
Hi, everyone.
And Reg, you've been with the company for how long?
Going 31 years, I think. Yeah, 31 years this year. Yeah, long time.
Yeah, a long time. Great. And Troy Coates, our construction manager, is also joining us tonight. Hi, Troy.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us this evening. As Bill mentioned, my name is Troy Coates, and I've actually been with the company for 25 years, a little less than Reg, but I'm catching up, Reg.
Happy for you to catch up.
And also with us tonight is our founder and CEO, Bill Baldwin. Hi, Bill. How long have you been with the company?
I don't want to date myself with this. I guess by default it's been since its inception, but let's just say longer than Troy and Reg.
So I'm quite proud to say the amount of construction experience that we have at our disposal is just so remarkable. I don't know anybody else around that has that amount of experience. I mean, we're talking, I hate to say it, guys, but that adds up to over 100 years of experience right here in this panel discussion. So a little bit about HartmanBaldwin, who we are. We are a true residential design build firm. We specialize, in fact, we work exclusively on residences or things associated with the residences. And from the inception of the company, we've been a true design build, meaning we are architects and we're also general contractors. And part of what we've done over the years is try to figure out a process, a business model that maximizes both sides of this. What do we know about building that can help us with design? And what do we know about design that can help us with building? And how do we stay consistent with all of that knowledge all the way through the project? So even from the beginning when we started, it was something that Bill and his partner at the time, Devin, started to really put their belief in, that rather than separating the two, the design and the build, and creating this sort of acrimony between these two things, is realizing that if we all have the same goal, if we all want to have a successful project, then let's bring everybody together from the beginning and work towards that goal. So bring the design, bring the build, and yourself together. I call that the creative sphere, having everybody with the common goal together. But tonight I want to make sure you understand we're focusing on the construction side, right? Because you've probably heard a lot of stories about getting through a design, figuring out what you want to do. And then all of a sudden you've spent all this time and energy and emotion to come up with this design. And now in a lot of ways, you've got to hand it over to someone that you may or may not know, right? And what is it that you want, Well, we want to make sure that we end up with a well-designed home that suits the needs that you want, that it's going to function the way that you want to when it's done, and that you're going to get the level of quality that you want as well. You also, want to avoid all the nightmares, right? All the nightmares that you hear. In fact, a lot of people joke with me. They tell me, hey, Bill, everybody tells me, all my friends that have gone through this, that whatever you say, it's going to cost double it. Whatever long you're going to say it's going to take, double it, all of that kind of thing. We want to avoid those nightmares. We want to avoid maybe having to work with people that you may not otherwise want to have come into your home, right? Who is it that's going to be coming into our home? And then we also want to be efficient, right? We don't want this thing to go on and on and on. And really, in a lot of ways, we all want a good experience. You know, I really think about why are we doing this? Why did we create this design build business model? And in a lot of ways, it was a challenge, right? We want to be the industry leader. We want to sort of set the pace in this whole thing. But also, in a lot of ways, if you're having a bad experience, we're probably having a bad experience as well. If you're having a bad experience with your builder is also having a bad experience as well. So in a lot of ways, we wanted to get this into play, not just to keep you in control of the design and the costs, but to have a good experience and have a good time with this. I remember one time I walked into someone's home and they had just finished their kitchen remodel. And I asked her about it. I said, well, it looks like you just finished your kitchen remodel. Why aren't you working with this firm? And she literally started to draw tears in her eyes. And she went on to tell me the story of some of the memories, some of the conflicts that they had while they were building their kitchen were so heinous and so emotional that those memories are still there. When she walked into her kitchen every morning, all of those arguments, all of that conflict lived with her in that kitchen. And that's just the worst of all worlds, right? Is now she has this thing and she can't even enjoy it. And then of course, you also want a relationship with someone that's gonna be there, that's gonna stand behind their work and that's gonna warranty their work, and a relationship that even years down the road, if something comes up, do you have someone that can come up and take care of that for you? And that goes beyond warranty. And we're gonna talk a little bit more about warranty and what that means to us as we get further down into the presentation. To set this up a little bit more, I'm just going to kind of show you a couple of quick projects just to give you a sense of what we do and some of the things that we work on. And then it also set us up about what we're going to talk about some more today. And I know, Troy, you worked on this great stone house where we had a chance to really create a neat space for this client.
Yeah, that's right, Bill. This project, it's actually a historic home in San Dimas. Beautiful rock stone home that existed here on a particular plot. We actually came in and added a few structures to the property for our client. We added an accessory unit in the back. We called it a studio, and as well as a 3-car garage. But what we also did was, took the existing home that's up to your upper left there, the before picture, and expanded on it. As you can see in the plan below, the dark lines represent the existing stone structure, and we added on to the back side of it, as well as, it being well over 100 years old. We went in and renovated it and restored it and brought it back up to what its glorious days used to look like.
That's right. And, the neat thing about this, is like Troy said, it was such a unique structure. So then to build new structures that will fit with this, it's not just framing and foundation and roofing and drywall, but there's stonework and complicated carpentry and all of that kind of thing that you need to work with someone that's got that level of trades and got that level of resources that can do this, and not just do it, but make it look appropriate for the way that it was originally done.
Yeah, I agree with you, Bill. One of the stories I could think of right now when you said that, it actually kind of reminded me of if you look at the before picture and you could focus in on the center rock column that's there, it's an existing column that's been there since day one. And the column that was to the right, it was so fragmented, so tore up that it actually, it fell apart almost day one. It crumbled out from underneath of us. But what's interesting, if you compare this before picture to the new picture, you could see the rocks that are in that before picture and tell that they're still there. But if I didn't tell you, our stonemen are so detailed and do such good work. That right column has been completely reconstructed. But again, I don't think if I told anyone, I don't know that anyone would know. So attention to detail is incredibly important.
Yeah. And we also do ground up homes too, not just these great remodels, but well, I got ahead of myself. We worked on this great home in Pasadena as well, where the client wanted an Olympic length lap pool. And I know Reg, you had some challenges to get this into the hillside, didn't you?
We sure did. Yeah, we sure did, Bill. This is something we had to think about how we were going to construct this as we were remodeling, doing a whole home remodel as well. So we had to kind of really think about access and getting into the back of the house, which was on a hillside, and carving out this 20-meter length lap pool. And with all that, you can see the structural steel supporting the canopy above. And yeah, it was challenging, but I tell you what, looking back now, it sure brings back some memories. It was a really beautiful project.
And that pool the client was exactly Olympic length pool too. We had that thing down. We laid that.
That's
table.
right.
It was very precise.
Yeah.
Great.
So.
All right. Here's the new home. Yeah, this was a new house from the ground up on the hills, up in Chino Hills. Some really interesting challenges with this, not just because of the size of the lot. Troy's going to fill us in a little bit more, but there were some protected, I believe it was birds on the site that we had to work with, making sure that their nesting grounds were protected during their nesting times. There was what's called a blue water stream on the property, so we needed to protect that. And in fact, we needed to get a bridge over that to get to the house. There were all sorts of challenges with this, weren't there, Troy?
Yeah, that's right, Bill. All of that stuff actually, definitely played into this particular project. This is in Chino Hills. It's a 9-acre parcel. And this actually, where the house is currently set and what you're viewing right now, it used to be a mountaintop. We actually had to move over 24,000 cubic yards of soil, just to get the platform, to get a staging area for where this house was going to set. But again, it's absolutely beautiful, dug into the hillside here. And it's such a beautiful site. It overlooks, they're into horses and miniatures. And they're able to look out just about any window on the back and inside and be able to look over their barns and their horses at any given time.
I want to brag on Troy for a second here too. If you look at these photographs, you see it's beautiful, but you see the complex geometry of this home. And from the foundation up, there was a lot of thinking and meeting and head scratching about how to get it so precise, because it was a very complex mathematical issue to erect it from the ground up. And Troy did an amazing job on this one.
Yeah, thanks, Bill. I appreciate that. And one of the things that's out of sight too, that that we put under our umbrella to do this, Bill mentioned the small Blue Creek that comes into the property, and we did install a 65-foot bridge that spanned this area, all steel beam, and it actually has a 1,200 linear foot driveway that comes up to it with streets, curbs, gutters, manholes, fire hydrants, etc. It was all something that we installed on this particular property. Came out beautiful.
One of the things too that I love about this house, and I'm sure it added to the complexity of the construction, is just the amount of materials in here that's created this beautiful home where we have this rock that meets steel windows, and then we've got stucco, and we've got metal roofs, and we've got wood, all of these materials coming together in such a beautiful way, and little details where even this big stone column has this neat detail of a window up above it before it meets the roof. All of those things that you oftentimes hear builders say, oh, architects can draw anything, but it doesn't necessarily can be built. Well, in a design build model where the architect and the builder are working together, that is a possibility, because as a designer, you can come up with an idea and then have the builder right there as part of the team. Hey, is this possible? How can I do this? This is the effect that I want. And then we've got the resources there to say, yeah, here's what we're going to have to do that. And then likewise, when it's in construction, if there's a question that comes up from a construction point of view, the designer is right there to support and say, hey, here's what I want. Here's how we can work through this. And that team is how we result in these just spectacularly, beautifully well-executed, well-designed projects that just really speak to that whole process.
If I could add to that too, I mean, I agree, Bill. That's the great cross-pollination you get where, you know, the architects in our company are getting educated all the time by the construction side on building techniques, and the construction side is working constantly on understanding the design intent. So when our clients sit down and talk about their hopes and dreams with the architect, our project managers understand that too. So they're representing the creativity and the design intent all the way through. So that cross-pollination of those skill sets, that makes for it's a far better project than even what's on the plan when it's done.
That's right. So let's talk a little bit about how we get there. I'm just going to spend a few minutes on this because it is a whole process. You know, Bill just talked about, you know, that initial inspiration, those initial meetings that we'll have with the client, trying to understand what it is that we're after, what it is that we're trying to accomplish. And we'll start, the first thing we want to make sure is figuring out what the project is, right? So we break up the whole process into three main parts. The conceptual design being the first part, and probably one of the more elegant but yet most difficult parts of the process, where we figure out the big picture. Then we'll get into the design development, where we figure out the details. And then finally, we'll get into the construction, where we're going to execute and then get this thing put into place. So let's talk just real briefly about conceptual design. The whole idea of the conceptual design is we want to figure out what we're going to do and about how much it's going to cost. Okay, so what we'll do to get to that point is just start working on some design solutions, right? How are we going to solve the things that you want to accomplish? Create a space that you would like to live in, and how do we make that beautiful? And very quickly, we want to put some cost estimates to that, because, you know, you hear these horror stories. In fact, I talked to someone just the other day. They had spent about $20,000 and about, I think they said 5 years figuring out what they wanted to do before they got costs on it. And then lo and behold, it was way more than they wanted to spend. So what we like to do is make sure that we're bringing those two things along together, that when we're presenting you with design solutions, we're also looking at the costs. Because if we know that what you want to do and what you want to spend may be two different things, when do we want to figure that out? Sooner rather than later, okay? Now, if you'd like to hear more about this piece of the process, jump onto our YouTube channel. If you go onto YouTube, search HartmanBaldwin, or go through our website. This particular part of the process, we dive into a little bit deeper on our Avoiding Remodeling Pitfalls webinar. So jump into that, take a look at that. Once we're done with the conceptual design, now we know generally what the project is, and we know about how much it's going to cost. Now we want to jump into all the details. We want to figure out if we need the engineering, get the engineering done, get the interior design done, all of the selections, specifications, all of the drawings, so that at the end of that, we've got a set of plans where you know what the project looks like, what's going away, what's coming back, what is it going to look like. We've also got a set of plans that we can go get permitted to. We've got a set of plans that we can build to. And really the payoff here is now we've got a set of plans where we can jump into our pre-construction process and come up with a price that we're going to guarantee. Okay, now hear that again, because I think this is totally unique. We've worked through the design to the point where we've got everything figured out, and we're going to get to a point where you have a guaranteed cost before we start construction on your project. And again, if you'd like more information or more detail on this, jump onto that YouTube channel, look for Successes in the Details, and you'll hear a little bit more about the design development process. But now, once we've got all of those details figured out, now we're ready to start into construction. We start into our pre-construction process, where we'll have a job walk. And at the job walk, we'll have all of the time, you know, Reg and Troy have had a chance to look at the project and decide who needs to come and walk the job with them. And what are some of the things that you guys get out of that job walk? Troy,
I could answer that and talk about the job walk piece. You know, again, it's every home is unique, whether it's been remodeled before or whether it hasn't. They're unique, and what that job walk does is it allows us to come on site to your particular home as we're designing it. Again, pre-construction. It allows Reg and I, our estimators, even multiple subcontractors, our electricians, our plumbers, etc., and to be able to walk the house based on the design that we're looking at, and look at areas of possible concern, right? A beam, a post, something that might be in the way that we did not see or that shouldn't have been there as per the last plan. So the job walk is just, it's incredibly important. It's valuable, it's insightful, and it's, it's just a great meeting.
Yeah, I mean, it's so amazing when I go to the job walks, and there you have the plumber and the HVAC contractor and the structural framing contractor, and maybe we need to figure out how we're going to get ducting or plumbing or make sure that all of that isn't in conflict. And all of those people are together with us figuring it out. I mean, it's really a powerful meeting. Now, once we've got that done, now we're ready to take the next step and start coming back to you, because now we know what we're going to need to do in the house and what's going to be torn apart or what's going to be done. And we can talk to you about how are we going to do this? How are we going to, in a lot of ways, how are we going to live together over the next few months? And that's what we'll talk about in our pre-construction meeting, okay, is when can we start? How do we have access to the site? What, do you have children? Do you have pets? How are we going to handle those? How are we going to keep the job site safe? If we're taking out your kitchen, how can we help you set up something temporarily so that you can, live? Most of our clients are living in the home while we're remodeling it. And then we'll also talk about schedule and all of that good stuff. Very powerful meeting as we get ready to start working on your home.
I think that sums it up, Bill. I think you did a good job in regards to our pre-construction agenda, and ultimately what that really means is, how do we take care of your home while we're in it? I mean, that's the rules that we set during that pre-construction meeting, right? A home is a sacred place. It's where you lay your head down at night, and it's important. It's important to know, again, just as individual as a home is during the job walk, and you might want to take care of your home a certain way. And this is something that we go over in great detail, multiple page process that we go over and talk about the, ins, outs, the do's and the don'ts.
Both those things, the job walk and the pre-con, do another really great thing, which is they almost eliminate change orders, because all that preparation of everybody on site to go through the entire house, how are we handling staging stuff? How are we handling you? That means that all that construction process for the rest of the job has been set down before the job even starts. It's, very, very valuable.
That's right. And now we can get to that, what we call the final estimate, the final construction cost. We've got all the subs, they've seen it, they've crawled all over it, trying to uncover everything that we possibly can to get to that final guaranteed cost. Now, when we start into construction, and we're going to talk about that, but I do want to take a minute and just talk about some of the key meetings, because now that we're working on your home, communication becomes paramount. Now we want to make sure we have your attention at least once a week. Sit down with us, go through the weekly meetings, go through some key meetings. I know, Reg, you have some strong thoughts about those key meetings and what those do for you as well, right?
Absolutely, Bill. It allows us to kind of just keep in touch with not just the client, but with the subcontractors, and just keep everyone on schedule, making sure we have our materials selected in time for the next steps. And we have, as you pointed out, key meetings like electrical meeting. Even though the drawings indicate kind of where plugs and switches go, it's not until you kind of walk into the room where you can actually see, physically see, well, maybe we want to put a switch here for this light, or locate lights in a particular space, spots. And then plumbing as well. When we do bathrooms, we make sure we set the valves at the right height for you, and the shower heads, and then the cabinet meeting, which is all, probably one of the most important meetings, is where we go through each door, each drawer, to make sure that we design and build the cabinets for your specifications, for your special pots or your dishes or things like that. So, so these weekly meetings we have are very important. It just, it allows us to keep, our fingers on the pulse, if that's a saying, but just to make sure that we're on top of it. Being
a design build firm too, having the architect at those meetings, it can get better if we all put our heads together and look at these things in a professional and detailed manner.
Right.
Yeah, I was going to mention that too, Bill. You know, we talked about the pre-construction piece. You know, that's actually at one. It's kind of a landmark spot, right, where the client has seen the architect on site and the yourself, the design build consultant. But at that pre-construction meeting, it's definitely a chance where the whole team comes together. So you get your project manager or myself who comes out and talks about it, and you just start to get to know your team a little bit more and who's going to be there, and again, just everyone under one roof. You don't lose teammates, you just continue to gain them.
Yeah, and then that leads to you saw the next slide up there for a second, the construction excellence. When I first became introduced to HartmanBaldwin, and it's funny, a lot of my clients share the same stories, is I would see HartmanBaldwin signs around town, and I would see what they were doing, and just the level of quality and design and construction led me to like, oh, hey, this is someone I need to know. I need to go work with them, and led me to go into their office. And I think, that was when I was there 15 years ago. But I do know that the only reason that has happened, that we have that reputation and that is being executed, has been from the top down. That I know, Bill, that's something that you have held in very high regard, is the construction excellence, as well as some other things. But why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, I think when people think of construction excellence, they first go to craftsmanship, and we hold an exceedingly high standard of craftsmanship in our company. We could constantly take people on tours, and they'll see kitchens, which is one of the most used rooms in the house, 15, 20 years old, and they look like they were done last month. So, that craftsmanship is key, but it's a piece of what's construction excellence. Our clients are, very busy. They do not want to worry. They don't want to have surprises. And so part of construction excellence is having a really tight, accountable team that's there to communicate well, to head off anything at the pass. If there's something that we know we need from our clients, we'll give them, advanced warning about, you need to make a decision in a couple of weeks, or we're going to need you for this. So it's the process, and having a clean job site, so it's safe and clean on top of everything else. It's all these pieces that kind of roll up into construction excellence. So it's the process, the relationship, and the craftsmanship. And oftentimes I think people think of it as only the craftsmanship, but all those things roll into our philosophy of what makes a great experience. And it's even after, Bill, you've mentioned, after the job's done, we're friends with our clients, and we're there. I always joke, if you're our client, we'll come back and hang a hummingbird feeder for you once you're in the system. So it's a very holistic philosophy, and we are very philosophical about it.
Yeah, and it shows. And I mean, that's where those key values, those key core values really are telegraphing. And maybe what we'll do is we jump in here to these next few set of slides, talk to you a little bit about how that kind of comes about, and kind of use some of those things. And obviously the team that we surround you and build for the people that are going to be working on your project. We're always looking for qualified subs that are going to have years of experience. You've already seen the level of experience with the panelists here tonight. Very expert team. But then we also value not just relationships with the clients, but once we have a good working relationship with a subcontractor, a tradesperson, that's something that we value almost as highly as our client relationships as well. Is that fair to say, guys?
Absolutely.
Yeah, definitely.
I've often said that, if you talk to me in the first 10 years, I was in the company, and asked me what I was most proud of, I'd probably take you around to one of our award-winning projects. And the last 20 years, I'm dating myself again, the last 20 years, I would tell you it's the team that we have put together. As we said, I've worked with Reg and Troy for close to 30 years, and we have subcontractors who have been with us that long. And it takes a lot of time to vet out the right people, the right subcontractors, vendors, the people on our team, to get that common language to where when we all are meeting on a project, we all know what we're talking about. We all know what the standards are of quality and of service and of warranty. That is, I'm more proud of what we've done within our company in that vein than anything else. We've just established an incredibly high quality team.
Well said.
I'm sure, Reg, it makes your life a lot easier when you've got some good relationships, some good tradespeople out there, right?
Oh, no doubt. I mean, as you can see, a lot of our projects are very complex, and it's not it's not just one person that's building these things. It's a group of people, and it really takes everyone's efforts and to undertake these projects.
Yeah, and when you have a project like the one we're looking at here in front of us, and you see those beautiful stonework, for example, along the pool, that when you start to look at a set of drawings and when oh, I have a mason, that can pull this off. And that just, raises our comfort level that, all right, we're really going to be able to put this together just the way that we see it. So this is a project we worked on in Pasadena. If you're interested, you can dive in a little bit more detail. We'll talk about the design on everything with the YouTube video that you see on the screen there, our contemporary estate with Zen design. But tonight I want to talk a little bit. This was a project that Reg was very involved with, Bill, you as well. Lots of complexity. And it really took a good design build team to get the client what they wanted in this case.
Yeah, the goal here was to create kind of a resort feeling in your backyard. So, and as Bill mentioned, the homeowner wanted a lap pool, Olympic length lap pool. So the challenges was how to get to the back and in the same at the same time remodeling the house. So a lot of structural steel, a lot of sort of foresight to have to be able to kind of execute this build. But with the contemporary home too, there's not a lot of room to hide things, right? So all the structure was actually finished elements. So this was a very unique design for sure.
Yeah, and a challenging part of the city as well. This was in a hillside district where we had to make sure we were. That's
right, hillside and fire, double whammy.
Just to chime this project under Reg's control here. That point is very well said. This is a very sculptural, minimalist house. It feels like a luxury spa in many parts of the house. It's wonderful. But your ability, Reg, on this, the transitions of stone and wood and detail and metal, I mean, they had to be perfect. There's no room for error. There's no latitude tolerances in it. And what you're able to do here it's just a spectacular project.
And I'll point out what they're talking about. For example, up here in the top of your screen, you can see the architect's drawing, right? Where they drew this hovering cabinet, and not just a hovering cabinet, but behind it are all of these wood slats where we wanted to create a room division, but not have a wall. And if you look at it in sight, here these wood slats come right up to the ceiling and just die right in. This is one of those things as an architect, very easy to draw. We just straight up and it just ends flat. But to pull it off, I don't know, Reg, what do you have to, you have to think about a lot of things to pull that off, right?
Yeah, well, right from we had this whole room gutted, and at framing, we had to make sure that ceiling was, pool table flat. And, because of the details at the top of the cabinet, so there's not a crown molding, just like a 1/2-inch gap between the cabinet and the ceiling. So that 1/2-inch gap had to be, exactly 1/2 inch all the way around as you go down the cabinet line. But this particular cabinet on the bottom left is about 11 feet sort of, and it's just fastened to the wall on the right. And then we have, two little poles that kind of hangs from the ceiling. So we had to make sure that this cabinet was, able to withstand use, right? So when you're opening and closing the doors, it's not going to sway back and forth. So there's a hidden steel plates kind of making it rigid, and big brackets in the ceiling in the attic, supporting this 1,000-pound cabinet. Maybe not quite 1,000 pound, maybe 800, but nevertheless, this heavy cabinet sort of hovering off of the wall here. So,
well, yeah, this would definitely be one of those things, Reg, when you looked at it and said, "Oh, architects can draw anything. Now help me build it."
Yeah, exactly. Well, and to his credit and to all of our architects' credit, they're in there with us trying to figure it out. So it's always fun to come up with these kinds of challenges and look back on it and say, hey, great job, everyone. This really turned out really nice, so
Those,
there's
those,
that.
those meetings when we work on those details, I was just at one the other day where, the client's there, the architect's there, project manager's there, often our interior designer's there, and there's 4 or 5 of us looking at 2 or 3 things, trying to resolve them. And I always say when everybody will see the right answer at some point, it's like when a guitar comes into tune, and you can see on everybody's faces, there it is. It's just that. And still to this day, for all the years I've done this, that's like my favorite part of the process. When you see that synergy with everybody, and to see the client in the center of it, you're listening to it, that becomes part of the story of their house. Those interesting details, that becomes a narrative that speaks to them, I think, for the rest of the time they own their project, they own their home.
Yeah, it's true. It's the involvement of everybody, right? Everyone has a piece, in it. So.
And I'm encouraged with this too, because this was pretty central to this home. I mean, there was a lot of other cool things going on, but this was a central feature in the home. And so you don't want to be with someone that just throws up their hands and goes, I don't know how to build this, but you want to have a team where the designer is there and saying, hey, here's what I had in mind. You've got a builder that wants to help you get what you want and wants to end up with something good. And then whoever else we need to get, we're going to get there and figure it out and reach the point that Bill just talked about, where that guitar comes into tune and that thing that was just going to be so key to the whole design of the house comes into play and gets accomplished just the way it was designed. That's really, really a great feeling. Let's look at another example. Let's go back to this house. Talk about complexity, boy. I think one of the complexities that you see is just how it was Troy talked about how it was up on the mountaintop, but we also kind of let it kind of cascade down the mountaintop, as you can see a little bit down over in here, and that got kind of complex as well.
Yeah, no doubt. It's, Reg mentioned it on the Hillside project that we were just talking about, and the complexities when you build a home where there's very tall ceilings, minimal space between floors, so you don't have attic space, very modern kind of feel to it. The complexities come when you're starting to run, your normal stuff that you just throw up in an attic, a gas line, a water line, HVAC lines. On this particular project, pretty big home, and all of the HVAC system on this particular project were run actually subterranean. So along with all of the red steel, which is the structural steel that helped give the property the rigidity that it needed, you had to run air conditioning ducts throughout all of this. So amongst having the, certified slab and pad, you have to dig it up and then put these air conditioning ducts in and make sure that these are coming out into place where they need to prior to the concrete floor even being poured. So definitely, and that's just one element of this particular one. So
yeah, and I think it's interesting to note too, if you look at this picture up in the upper right during construction, and you look at this one down here on the lower right, those are taken almost from the same point of view. And you can see what had to happen here for all of this earth, this pool and landscaping and everything to happen. That's where when we talk about depth of expertise, someone needs to anticipate, okay, I've got a pool here. How am I going to build my foundation so close to a pool and still make that all come together at all the right levels, all the right planes? That's going to take forethought. That's going to take experience. That's going to take the expertise that we have.
Definitely. Yeah, that was an infinity edge pool. You could actually see it in this photograph here in the lower right side. You don't catch much of the infinity edge, but that's exactly what that picture, forecasted or showed.
Yeah, and I think this one's a good example as well as, the personal touches. I think there's a fun story with these supports on the island, right, where, the client wanted something unique and special, not just a table leg there or something. I forget the story with that. What was the story with that?
Well, I'll actually go back to the beginning of our pod here. We talked about avoiding the nightmares, and we mentioned these weekly meetings. And this actually came about during one of our weekly meetings, where we sit down with the clients and we go over it. And again, even though the architect has drawn these beautiful pictures, it's still nice to be able to walk through the space. And again, you know, as I mentioned, just as much through this whole thing, I keep commenting on different homes and different styles. Well, along with that, there's different people too, right? You get short, you get tall, you get medium. And so some people want their counters at 36, some people want them at 38. You know, how do you do that? How do you make adjustments to that to accommodate a refrigerator or a dishwasher? And this particular island cabinet, we actually came up with a thought, the architect drew them, and we had to have these legs cast in a casting with steel. And what we did is we created and made cardboard templates that we could hold there and stand and cut them in half and then see how they projected out. You can see the ones in the right where they're in half and they just kind of almost like disappear and create that little space there. But that was all done during one of these weekly meetings with the client, standing there, looking at them, feeling the scale, and being able to walk in the space. So definitely an important piece that you need to have.
Very nice, very beautiful.
This was an Italianate. It was actually, it's a home in Hancock Park. And it was an Italianate home that had been remodeled so many times. Somebody turned it into a Monterey style. We discovered that it was originally Italianate, and the client gave us the charge to kind of return it back to its glory. Tremendous amount of work between architecture and construction with existing materials and different detailing, glazing on the wood. And if you see in this photograph here on the before picture, it was a very dark home, and there was an indoor-outdoor space down below that you see there, and some compartmentalized space above. And the epiphany that the whole team had when we were out there was, if we could lift a section of that out and create this kind of upstairs loft, it would open up to the beauty of the ceiling above, bring light all the way in. And the irony of this is this room, that the before picture, which was kind of the least used room in the house, and we were kind of mystified as to how it would integrate, now turned into what you see on the left there, which ended up being the most used room in the house. And it just was a stunning amount of light that came in. But it's a real epiphany from the design build team's point.
Yeah, and I think this is an interesting story too, where the client in a lot of ways knew what she wanted. She was a very busy person, I'll say that, and she just wanted someone that could take her vision and execute it. Is that fair to say, Bill?
Yeah, absolutely. We were given a lot of trust. Like you said, the client had an extremely busy schedule. And so that's the part, again, of the single accountable team, right? So we had formed a really great team of interior designers, architects, builders. There's quite a few people on this team because it was a very large and complex project. But there was also a single point accountability in it, and the client was able to give that trust over and keep their very busy schedule and be updated on a regular basis. And it ended up being a phenomenal project.
Yeah, very beautiful.
Back to modern.
Completely different, a very modern home. This was a semicircular home with, you can see just this amazing view as you see in the photograph to the left. And Reg worked quite a bit on this. This was a challenging project. One of the things that the client wanted to maximize was that beautiful view that they had. You know, you can see it here out into the mountains and everything. And one of the things that happened was the kitchen was off into another part of the house. You can see it down here. And originally there was a wall here, right? And so we wanted to open that up to maximize their view. And then we also had a need for an office, right? And so that needed its space, it needed walls. So how do we come up with an idea of maximizing the view, but yet also creating a private space? So our architect came up with this idea of this big sliding barn door. Okay, again, easy to draw, good intention, right? The client wants this intention. How do we do it? How does that get pulled together? And I know, Reg, you had some head scratching to make that happen, but certainly was a good result.
We did, yeah. So that's approximately 7 foot wide, 8 foot, almost 9 foot tall door. So it's a very heavy, like 2.5 inch thick walnut door that when open, we want it to look like part of a wall. And then when closed, obviously provide the privacy. So we had to come up with a way, you know, in a post and beam house too, there's nowhere to really hide the hardware or the tracks or the wheels. So, we had to really kind of come up with a new way to kind of make this work. So we got a track, designed a proper shroud for it, and integrated it with the beam, so that when you close the door, it would close on the post and still allow the views to be taken in from either room. But when open, it would can be completely give you an unobstructed view of the valley. But,
it strikes me when I look at these that comparing it to the Hogue cabinet that was floating, and this one, you have quite an ability to make very heavy things float.
Yeah.
I was waiting for him to throw in how much it weighed. I think the cabinet was 1,000 pounds, so but I imagine that thing's pretty heavy.
Well, this took 4 guys, four men, strong men, to bring it into the house and stand it up. This is very heavy.
Yeah, there were a lot of challenges here too, because I know the client wanted to, you can see it here, the curvature of the house, right? This beam up here.
Right.
And so
yeah, we had to make,
when we took out the wall to the kitchen, right? This wall here, that was curved as well. So how do we take out a curved wall and put in a curved beam? Again, the head scratcher would be much easier just to, do it a different way. But this was something that was important to the client. We might make sure that the team around them executed it to the way that they were hoping.
Yeah.
And then I always think it's a neat, if you look at the open staircase that you see over here, and the way that kind of feel of the design is reflected into this barn door, that's where we start to see all of these designs really pull your house together. And having someone that's thinking of this holistically for you, thinking of all of the opportunities to make your home flow together, not just from a space point of view, but from an aesthetic point of view, keeping those things in mind, that's where we start to see all of those beautiful things come together. And we talked about, the importance of the communication during constructions, that having those key meetings, the daily updates, the weekly meetings. One of the things we do too is we check ourselves. We have a third party that will survey our clients to get an understanding of how we're doing. Is there any opportunity to improve? We've also started to use an app called Builder Trend that could give you those updates that on a daily basis, you can kind of pull that up. And I think, Troy, you've used that app on some of your projects. How's that work?
Yeah, it works good. Builder Trend, it's a company that we use. And as Bill mentioned, it is something that's online. So it gives everyone at any time who has access to it, and as clients, we sign you up, we invite you into it. And it basically, you can go on this and your project is on there. And everything from when you started with us, inspiration videos, photos, colors, it has, what's nice about Builder Trend, it has unlimited space. So we could put plans on it, pictures. Once the project starts, we could keep everybody up to speed with a current schedule. Again, weekly meetings, make sure that those are loaded in there. Anybody could go to them at any given time and see them. Schedules, if it needs to be adjusted, if time needs to be made up, if we're ahead of schedule. It's something that's just live and you have access. And what's great about it too is everyone's schedule is different, right? So it's there 24 hours. If you want to look at it at 2 o'clock in the morning or 2 o'clock in the afternoon, it's a piece that's available and it's live trending. So it's something that's just constantly updated, useful tool.
That's a good point, Troy. Generally speaking, we're working on your home, right? And we're working on your home during the day when you're at work. Granted, we've all been working from home for the past year, but generally speaking, we're working on your home while you're away. So the ability on a daily basis to kind of pull it up and look at, maybe Troy's taking a picture of what happened that day, or maybe you want to take a picture and ask a question. You can all do that all through the app and see when your next invoice is going to come, how much have you paid so far, what's left, how we doing on the schedule, all of that right in the palm of your hand.
Yeah, definitely a useful tool. It's something that we use with our subcontractors as well.
I think one of the things, that I wanted to the reason we talked about the weekly meeting is because a lot of those opportunities to continue to customize your home and make it just the way you want come up in these weekly meetings. And you want to find yourself in a team that says, you know, hey, I had this idea. You want to be with someone that says, okay, let's hear about it. Let's do it. What do you want to do? Rather than someone that says, it's not on the plans. I'm building it to the plans. And this house, this Hill residence, we have a couple of fun anecdotes to tell you about it. And if you'd like to learn more about it, this was another one where if you'd like to go deeper about this home, you can go onto the YouTube channel and look under the Spanish Home Stunning Remodel, and you can learn a little bit more about that. But I know there was some fun things that came up, especially around this phonograph when Bill and Troy, you worked on this.
Yeah, on that one. It's one of those in the middle of construction epiphanies that we're talking about when the whole team's together. The client wanted to bring a stereo system in, and the two doors that you see there, turntable sticking out, those originally were doors that had from an outside box the ability to load firewood in to bring it into the fireplace. Well, it's a gas burning fireplace now, gas logs. And so Alan, our architect, thought, well, I think I can rebuild that cabinet so I can do a pull-out turntable that's balanced perfectly and for storage for albums below. And then all went down to an AV closet in the basement. So it was a really fun little detail that allows to hide everything, and yet the turntable pulls out really elegantly. So we got their stereo system in a very discreet way.
Yeah, and then it hides behind, you know, right back in there if you didn't want to see it.
It's beautiful.
Definitely.
We also had a fun little thing in their kitchen as well.
Yeah, actually, you know, one of the points I'd like to make on this particular picture is notice the upper left one does say rendering. You know, the other two are actual photos of the house. So our architects can do 3D renderings. And again, that's a rendering. And to be able to look at that before this was actually even built, I mean, you'd swear, even looking at it right now, it feels like it is in fact a photo. You could see some minor details that in fact changed. You know, if you look at the upper left shelves on the rendering, they are in fact all white, where the actual photo, we ended up adding a little piece of mahogany, which was that flowed all throughout the space. All the doors, all the base molding was mahogany throughout this home. And we wanted to put that up there and just bring a little bit of color to those shelves up there. But also one of the cabinet meetings we were talking about on this particular photo, it does illustrate, if you look at the rendering, you could see that there's an additional step in the countertop. So it actually comes out, it does a 90-degree turn, and then it goes into a radius. Well, when we started laying this cabinet out, the idea on the lower right is that door leads into the dining room. And a door that you can't see that's immediately to your left over there is the backyard. And the idea was to have that space flow and have an open feeling. But when we laid these cabinets out with the clients, we were sitting there with the architect, Bill, myself, we were going through it, our interior designer. We actually had this idea where we were looking at it and going, hey, this feels like this countertop just projects a little too far into the opening. Again, a cardboard template, imagine that. As simple as a cardboard template, but laying it out and realizing that if we just changed it ever so slightly. So what we did is we got rid of the step, and then we just created the radius from one edge to the other. And what that did is it gave us several inches to pull it back into the kitchen, to keep it a part of that, but then to allow that space to flow more freely like the clients had anticipated.
We've made so many cardboard templates in our time, we could probably build a whole house out of the cardboard templates we've made.
I would agree with that.
Notice this too, if you hate your dog dishes hanging out in your kitchen floor, we can always hide them in your cabinet toe kick.
That's right. Yeah, that's a cool, fun little cabinet detail that you could add to any toe kick. Just not have to see it.
I think another good example of the strength of a design build team is in this great restoration we had of a Green and Green project, which was just loaded with opportunities, not just to restore this home and bring it up to modern living standards, but just to complete so much more that if we had not been aware and had a good team intact with a common goal, there's a whole slew of opportunities that would have been missed in this case. And for example, this one, the siding is one, and I know, Bill, you really had your head into the siding of all of that shingled siding on the house. And I think that's an interesting story to share.
Well, yeah, it was an incredible home. We were really honored to work on it. You know, the famous Green and Green brothers, and this is the first home that they designed to build outside of Pasadena, and we were entrusted by the clients to do a full renovation on it. And we discovered when we were in the field that the shingles were not in great shape, and we did our research and work and realized that they weren't original. And so it allowed us to replace rather than restore. And that opportunity opened up incredible options in terms of the structure and insulation. We used to joke that the house was so leaky that if a breeze was blowing, you're standing in the center of the house, it'd blow right over you. So this allowed us to insulate it, wrap it, bring it up to current energy standards, allowed a lot of the infrastructure. And then we also did a bunch of, to do a much better job on the infrastructure. Then also, while we're doing that process, we started to look at trying to figure out, when we researched and found out the shingles weren't original, what were the colors of the original shingles. So we did a bunch of research on the Green and Green brothers, looking at their old kind of green creosote colors. So we were doing a bunch of experimenting with that, in addition to all the modern upgrades we did for the infrastructure. Ultimately, we were in a screened-in porch, which is one of the great rooms in the house, and lifted off one of the old shingles and found that the color that we ended up using, that green creosote color, was originally in the house. So serendipitously, we ended up choosing the right color. Here's that screened porch you can see right now. It was a screened porch. We enclosed it. You can see there's a really zen feeling in the upper right-hand corner to that waterfall and pond that we put in there. That lower left hand, that room, you know, the enclosed room, is everybody's favorite room in the house. All of us, whether you're a reader or not, you want to sit in that room with a book in your hand and listen to that gurgle of the stream outside. It's really an absolutely fantastic room in the house. I think it's everybody's favorite. And the kitchen on the right-hand corner, the lower right, will show you too that, you know, again, those modern upgrades. You see push button, the dark squares there are the old push button style switches, but they're modern and they're rheostats. So they actually dim the lights. All the lighting in the house was LED, upgraded, you know, brand new appliances, but the look and feel all the way through the house, and the research we did there is all taken from different homes the Green and Green brothers did. So it's very historically accurate, but all upgraded to a very modern lifestyle.
Yeah, you know, Bill, something else to talk about too is, you know, when you started the conversation, and we, you know, based on the research that we did on this particular home, and coming up with an opportunity, as we like to say here, you know, HartmanBaldwin is, you know, being able to get rid of them, as Bill mentioned, and being able to insulate also led us to you know, a destination which was, as a historic home, and such a beautiful historic home, and tied to the Green and Green name. It's actually one of the first green rated homes in, you know, and a historic home at that. So we're definitely, it's something that we're super proud of, and it's not an easy task to do, to take any home as far as that goes, but to take a historic home such as a Green and Green and get a green rated system on it, and qualify for that and achieve it is not a small feat.
Yeah, I think it's such a great example of having such a good team around you that isn't just want to design and build, but wants to create a home for you and take the time to look for all of the opportunities that when we're gone and you've moved into your home, there are things that were done either behind the walls or inside the walls that you didn't expect were ever going to happen. And that when you're all done with it, you're so glad that they did. You're so glad that someone took the time to really look for the opportunities to make this not just a place for you to live, but your home where you're comfortable and you have good memories and you had a good experience to get you to the place where you are. That's who we are. That's who we want to be. And I think that's why we get such good ratings. You know, I mentioned before, we have a third party survey our clients and give us rankings. And I think I'd be, you know, our rankings are so much higher than anybody else in the industry. I mean, you can see we're up at 99, 97, 98% satisfaction in these very key categories. And a lot of it is not because that's what we're trying to do. That's not our end goal, but it's because we care and we value the same things that you do when you want to accomplish this in your home. All right, guys, boy, we're getting close to the end here, but I want to talk about one of the things that's probably one of the most important things, and that's when all is said and done, and we are sweeping up the floor and polishing the doorknob as we're leaving, you want to make sure that if anything comes up again, that someone is there for you. And this is one of those things that I know, Bill, you've given a lot of thought and talk a lot about throughout the company. And I think this is a good chance to talk a little bit about who we are and what our approach is to after we leave you with your home.
Well, the industry standard on warranty and what almost all builders offer is a 1-year fit and finish warranty. And that's the industry standard. And we offer something that I don't think anybody else in the industry offers. Our promise is this, that we hold our standards of craftsmanship very, very high. So if at any time in the future, when the entire duration you own your home and the project, if something comes up that's a problem that has to do with our craftsmanship, we honor it. We guarantee it. And I don't know anybody in the industry that does that. We take it extremely seriously, our level of craftsmanship and the ethics of what you should hold us to in terms of that craftsmanship. There's myriad examples. I can give you a couple. We did a deck and our clients, it was probably 17 years later, and our clients called us up and said they thought they had a problem from watering plants or such. It was time to replace the deck. And we said, fine, we'll come up and do it for you. And we'd given them a price. And then when we did the investigation, opened up the deck, one of our carpenters called me and said, you should come down here and look at this. We found out that a flashing had been installed incorrectly that allowed too much contact between some of the beams below it and the concrete. So we looked at that and said, that's on us. That was a mistake. We don't make many, but they do happen. And it was a craftsmanship error on our part. And we did all the repairs for free. So that is the promise that we offer. Another kind of fun anecdote along those lines is we did a really spectacular job in a Spanish colonial home. And they had this interesting curved staircase. We won an award for the project. Curved staircase along this low retaining wall up back. And it's on a deck. It's beautiful. And we drew up this incredible little bracket and rosette, and the way it kind of cantilevered out and reached up and grabbed that railing. And we had 2 different runner guys we talked to, and neither one of them could do that detail. They said, I just don't know how I could do that. So we had to kind of compromise a bit, and we put up the railing. The clients were very happy with it. Probably 6-7 years later, we designed this whale, kind of a rib cage staircase at a paleontological museum. And we found this incredible wrought iron guy. So we ran down and got the drawing from their staircase and said, can you build this? And he said, yeah. So those clients of ours came back, unbeknownst to them, to one day in the afternoon, we had measured out and completely replaced that railing, obviously at no charge, with the way it was designed originally when we first met them. So I hope that illustrates our level of commitment to our promise and the ethics of what we think, when you buy something from us, what's at stake and what that craftsmanship means. It's a big deal to us. Again, I think that this is a much more, what churns and moves this company forward is really philosophical. And I hope that what we all talked about tonight shows that.
Thank you, Bill. Very well said. All right, that brings us pretty much to the end of the content tonight. I did want to leave a little bit of space at the end here for some questions and answers.
Oh, hi there, Bill. Yeah, Christina here. First and foremost, thank you. I just want to say thank you to our wonderful panelists, Bill Judson, Troy, Bill Baldwin, Reg. Thank you so much for such a great presentation. It's always great to hear from you directly. So just a round of applause for you all. We did answer most of our questions, but I did leave one here for the end. And that was, how do you work with clients who choose to live in the home during a remodel?
Well, I can answer that if you don't mind. This is Troy. We do projects of all scale and all sizes. Larger projects, sometimes the clients don't live there, but when they do live there, that's where that, going back to the pre-construction part of the project that Bill talked about, the agenda that we go over. We talk to our clients, we sit down again. It's that agenda is about how your home is taken care of. So we discuss that, how we're going to work with you, rooms that we'll close off. If we're doing a kitchen remodel, we discuss and talk about doing a temporary kitchen, temporary sink, how it's going to drain, where it's going to drain, how that's going to affect us, pantry, etc. But it's something that we commonly do. We do it from both angles, but that's what's nice about that pre-construction meeting, to discuss that in great detail and understand expectations and communication, and making sure that that's established before day one, right? Before anything starts getting removed from the home, etc. You understand each other and know what's expected from each other. I think that's a big piece, and that's how.
Absolutely.
We all you know, we plastic everything off and it's sealed, you know, and they say in real estate, it's location, location, location. In our world, it's clean up, clean up, and clean up. So oftentimes when people are living in the house, we have everything cordoned off and zip sheet walls. It looks like the final scene in E.T., where there's plastic everywhere through the house. So we go to great lengths to cordon that off and make it an enjoyable, as enjoyable as it can be, living experience while we're going through the remodel.
Absolutely. Yeah, that was a great question. Great answer too. And it looks like that was it for us here.
Okay, great, guys.
Awesome.
You know, one of the things I hope you're realizing about us is we like to be very transparent. We like to share our experience and expertise. And so I directed, you know, you have an opportunity to learn more about us through some of our webinars on the YouTube channel. Obviously, you can check us out on all the socials, you know, look us up in HartmanBaldwin. And then we've got a couple more things coming up. June 24th, we're going to be broadcasting our webinar on myth busting the bid process. How do we really get to the understanding of what is this going to cost and can I really trust it? And then coming July, we're going to have a custom home design showcase. So if you're interested in keeping up to speed with all of those or all the upcoming events, make sure we have your email. Or keep in touch so that we can make sure that we have all of that. And then, of course, if you get to the point where you'd like to have one of us come out and talk specifically about your home and the way we work, you know, just let us know. We're easy to get a hold of. Again, we're on all the socials, or check out our website, give us a call. We'd love to spend a little time with you and see if we can end up working together. So that about wraps it up for tonight, everybody. I want to thank you for your time. I want to thank Reg and Troy and Bill. Thank you for being this, for all of your expertise, all of your input and everything tonight. Really great. So, all right. Goodbye, everybody.
Thank you, Bill.
Cheers.